this feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you. My bones ache, my skin feels cold, and I'm getting so tired and so old. The anger swells in my guts, and I won't feel these slices and cuts. Tell me that you'll open your eyes. Tell me that you'll open your This feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you.
We are Terps Against Hunger, and we do good at the University of Maryland. We package and distribute nutritious and non-perishable meals to local families experiencing hunger. That's why Maryland is a do good campus.
We are students helping Honduras, and we do good at the University of Maryland. Our mission is to bring education to rural areas of Honduras by building schools and working with educators. Just one more reason why Maryland is a do-good campus.
Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest is currently delayed in traffic. Our program will begin as soon as possible.
We are Miles for Smiles, and we do good at the University of Maryland. We raise money and awareness to address the lack of oral health care for children in Central America. That's why Maryland is a do-good campus.
This feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you. My bones ache, my skin feels cold, and I'm getting so tired and so old. The anger swells in my guts, and I won't feel these slices and cuts. Tell me that you'll open your eyes. Tell me that you'll open your eyes. This feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you.
We are Terps Against Hunger, and we do good at the University of Maryland. We package and distribute nutritious and non-perishable meals to local families experiencing hunger. That's why Maryland is a do good campus.
We are Miles for Smiles, and we do good at the University of Maryland. We raise money and awareness to address the lack of oral health care for children in Central America. That's why Maryland is a do good campus.
We are students helping Honduras, and we do good at the University of Maryland. Our mission is to bring education to rural areas of Honduras by building schools and working with educators. Just one more reason why Maryland is a do-good campus.
This feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you. My bones ache, my skin feels cold, and I'm getting so tired and so old. The anger swells in my guts, and I won't feel these slices and cuts. Tell me that you'll open your eyes. Tell me that you'll open your This feels strange and untrue, and I won't waste a minute without you.
We are Miles for Smiles, and we do good at the University of Maryland. We raise money and awareness to address the lack of oral health care for children in Central America. That's why Maryland is a do-good campus.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Please take your seats. The Do Good Generation special event with United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to His Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Wallace Lowe, President of the University of Maryland, College Park.
Good afternoon. I'm Wallace Lowe, President of the University of Maryland in College Park, the flagship of the state of Maryland. We are honored that Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is with us this afternoon, and you should know he is fresh off the plane from Reagan Airport. Dashed here because, of course, he had a convoy of police officers who cleared the path for him to get here. Secretary General Ban is here today, but there are also a number of distinguished guests I would like to recognize. And I would ask that perhaps you hold your applause until I acknowledge the people who are here today. Madam Ban is here accompanying the Secretary General. The First Lady of Maryland, Professor Yumi Hogan. She's a professor of art in the Maryland Institute College of Art. The Maryland Secretary of State, John Wobensmith, is here. The Chancellor of the University System of Maryland, Dr. Robert Caret. The Ambassador of the Republic of South Korea, the Honorable Ho Yun-an and Mrs. An are here. The First Secretary of the South Korean Embassy, Jae-pil Moon, and many members of the Korean American community in the state of Maryland. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished visitors. Today, the University of Maryland is honored to bestow on the Secretary General an honorary doctoral degree for public service. The service of the Secretary General is long, but I assure you the ceremony will be brief. I call to the stage the presenters who will confer this award to the Secretary General. Would First Lady Yumi Hogan please come forward? The Chancellor of the University System of Maryland, Dr. Robert Caret. Dean Robert Orr of the School of Public Policy. University Marshal Martha Nell Smith, a professor of English and a distinguished scholar of Emily Dickinson. As a child in South Korea, Ban Ki-moon learned about war and poverty as United Nations troops protected his family. Later, he rose through the nation's diplomatic service to become the foreign minister. Subsequently, he led the United Nations through a period of extraordinary challenge, and he has been at the helm of the United Nations for closing his 10th year of service. We honor him today, both for what he has done and for what has not happened under his leadership. As one of his predecessors, Dag Hammarskjöld, put it, the United Nations was not created to lead humankind to heaven, but to save humankind from hell. Mr. Ban counts as his signature achievements the Paris Accord to limit climate change, an absolutely historic agreement. And the University of Maryland was very honored to partner with the United Nations in hosting the historic International Climate Implementation Summit here in College Park and in Washington, D.C. last May. Mr. Ban's commitment to youth leadership also stands among his most lasting achievements. He feels passionately about calling on the rising generation of young people to high public service. It is this mission that called him to come to the University of Maryland today because of the launch of our initiative, the Do Good Initiative. Mr. Secretary General, would you please come forward for the conferral of the honorary degree? Chancellor Corrett, would you please read the award citation?
Because he rose from the privation of war to pursue peace, because he led the United Nations with calm steadiness through extraordinary turbulence, because he serves as a voice of the voiceless and a defense for the defenseless, and because he inspires youth to pursue public service, President Loh, I present to you Ban Ki-moon, candidate for the honorary degree of Doctor of Public Service.
Under the authority granted by the State of Maryland to the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland, and by the authority the Board has delegated to me, I am very proud to confer upon Ban Ki-moon the degree Doctor of Public Service. They will introduce you. You can stand there.
Dr. Wallace Loh, President of Maryland University, Dr. Robert Carey, Chancellor of the University System, Madam Yumi Hogan, First Lady of State of Maryland, Dean Robert O., distinguished faculty, dear young students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here on the Do Good campus to meet with old friends and make new friends. I'm thrilled to receive this honorary doctorate in public service. Now that I have received this honorary degree, and now that I see so many distinguished guests and students, I'm a little bit relieved. In diplomatic community, you never organize anything in the Friday afternoon. I was half an hour late, and I was wondering whether there will be some students left. If only President and Chancellor or Professor O remain, then it would be humiliating for me. I thank you very much for your patience and participating and having yourself available for this very important and meaningful occasion for me. Again, I thank you for your participation, and I'd like to also thank and recognize the presence of His Excellency Ambassador An Ho-young, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea. And I also see a lot of Korean community, Korean American citizens, and I'm very proud of all what you have been doing as honorable citizens and contributing to this great society. Again, I thank you very much for this honor. As I was introduced by the Chancellor, President, I decided to enter public service when I was a young teenager, just 18 years old, when I visited the United States in 1962. I think some of you might not have been born at that time. I was one of the very fortunate, lucky students I was representing Korean Red Cross Society. And there were about 120 international students at the invitation of American Red Cross Society. During all the programs, very meaningful programs, one particularly important program was to meet with President John F. Kennedy at the time, August 1962. I was one of all these 120 students from international community. At that time, President John F. Kennedy said that, I do not remember all because it was 54 years ago already. He said that the countries, the leaders are not getting along well because during the height of Cold War, but the people, young people, you are getting along well. These days, at that time already, he said, the national boundaries are not important. What is important is that whether you are ready to render your helping hands to people who need support. That was most inspiring. And that moment, I thought that, what should I do for my country? I never thought about the world. I was thinking about my own country. I thought that serving my country as government official, particularly diplomat, would be the best way for me to contribute to my country. I worked hard, and I later became a diplomat, and that was the time, and that inspiring moment just led to me until today. I'm serving this great organization, United Nations, as a Secretary General, working for the peace and stability and human dignity of all 7 billion people around the world. That is the moment, and I really appreciate to recognize me as public servant, and I think this honorary degree on public service seems to be fitting to my purpose, and I really appreciate it, and thank you very much. I'm receiving this honorary degree on behalf of tens of thousands of many people of the UN staff who are working day and night for humanity all around the world, day and night. I thank you very much. I accept humbly this honor on behalf of all of them. Distinguished faculty, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, I first want to thank Professor Dean Robert O., who I regarded as my teacher when we were working together in the United Nations. Now he's teaching you, but he used to teach me, even though he was my special advisor. But there is no age limit when it comes to learning. I learned a lot, particularly on climate change and all of what we should do on humanity. As I know from his many years in my office, he's a powerhouse of energy. He's now bringing that dynamism to this great school. Wherever he was and he is, he creates a buzz. When I visited last year, I vowed to return. Now that time has arrived. Thank you very much for that. As a Secretary General, I must, of course, be impartial, independent, and neutral. I cannot express a support for one side over another. But here today, I proudly declare myself a Terp. Like your mascot, Testudo the terrapin, I spend a lot of time up to my neck in sticky situations, and the water is always rising. I'm extremely concerned by climate change and environmental issues, and I enjoy basking in the sun when I get the chance. However, unlike Testudo, rubbing my nose will not bring good luck. Ladies and gentlemen, joking apart, it would be a great honor to be a Terp again. Thank you very much for this. But it is even greater honor to join you as you launch the first Do Good campus. The University of Maryland is blazing a trail from classes where students are creating their own nonprofits and social enterprise ventures, to your award-winning food recovery and food access programs, to your work on how past discrimination affects present-day Baltimore. You are setting a new standard in philanthropic leadership for your young people. You are making crucial links between pioneering research projects, public policy, and social change. It's inspiring to witness all this, what you are doing. I'm confident that you will instigate do-good efforts on campuses and in communities across the United States and around the world. Distinguished faculty and guests, I would like to talk to you about the three global challenges. First, the climate change. Second, sustainable development, and refugees and migration. In fact, among these three, the climate change and sustainable development goals are two very ambitious visions the world leaders, the United Nations, have adopted for humanity. I am very proud that I have been part of this process. I hope you will direct some of your efforts toward these global priorities. First, the climate change. The Paris Agreement on climate change, which was adopted December last year, will enter into force on November 4th. In fact, nobody expected that this climate change agreement will enter into force so soon. And it was even difficult for me to expect that this will happen before the end of my term. But I set the bar high, very high. I will make sure that this climate change agreement will be adopted by last year and will enter into force before I leave my job. Then I'm making it happen just almost 2 months before the end of my term. That I'm very much grateful for all world leaders, particularly including President Obama and President Xi Jinping of China, who have really shown great leadership, great commitment. I know how difficult it is for President Obama to deal with this matter, to make it happen under this very difficult electoral campaign season, as well as the parliament, congressional situations. An agreement that once seemed to be impossible is now unstoppable, inevitable, and irreversible. This is a trend. This is a huge, big trend is now moving. There were some skeptics, deniers, but all the voices of these skeptics and deniers have been silenced with the wholehearted support of international community. It's not only government leaders, the business community leaders and civil societies. I was so much inspired when in New York in 2014, when I convened summit meeting on climate change, 400,000 people marched in Manhattan, shouting and crying for this climate change agreement. And world leaders have listened to that voice, and business community leaders, they listened to that. And there was a strong power of civil society. For example, we have established a lot of records. Normally, the sports record exists to be broken. So anytime this record can be broken, 100 meters, marathon, or pole vault, swimming. But in the international community, when it comes to certain agreement, convention, and treaties, it's very slow to break any record. This year, April 22nd, when this climate change agreement was open for signature, I invited world leaders. 175 world leaders have come to the United Nations. Just all of them, presidents and kings and prime ministers and ministers, 175. This is the first ever record-breaking that any agreement, convention, or treaty was signed by 175 countries in one day, in one place. Such record existed and happened in 1982, when the world leaders signed United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in Montego Bay, Jamaica, in 1982. It was 34 years ago. Then now, out of 197 state parties, 191 countries have signed it, and now 75 countries have ratified it. So we have all crossed over threshold. In case of a high jump or pole vault, I think we have crossed all the high bars. So we achieved the gold medal. That's what I am very much proud that world people have shown their strong commitment. When it comes to climate change, I traveled all around the world during last almost 10 years. Most recently, just last week, I was in Iceland again, just to show then how quickly these glaciers are melting. For example, on a single day last month, the Arctic ice cap melted at 3 times its normal speed, losing ice the size of England. Can you believe that? The size of England melt in one day. When Arctic ice melts, it can have a catastrophic effects for coastal cities. From Bangkok to Baltimore and New York, there are many coastal cities who can be inundated. The Paris Agreement is a huge step forward. Now comes the real test, implementation. Now I'm leaving it to my successor, who was appointed yesterday, who was designated yesterday. He assured that he will carry on all our legacies. The Climate Action 2016 Summit that the University of Maryland co-hosted here in Washington earlier this year helped us to accelerate progress on the ground. We are seeing promising momentum. Second, the Sustainable Development Goals, which we normally call SDGs, instead of MDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Global leaders came together again a year ago, September last year, to agree on a visionary agenda for people, the 7 billion people, and for our planet Earth, so that they can live in peace and prosperity through partnerships. It's not the word play, but if you can remember the 5 P's for Sustainable Development Goals: people, planet, peace, prosperity, and partnership. This is a main theme. The main philosophical theme of these Sustainable Development Goals is to leave no one behind. All the people should be placed onto sustainable path together with our planet Earth, where we are living. There's a main goals. There are 17 goals, starting from eradicating abject poverty, then gender empowerment, energy, education, and there's a biodiversity, oceans. There are 17 goals. These are the one which covers all spectrums of our life as a human being, and all the issues covering the environmentally sustainable planet Earth. It has 17 goals which works all in an integrated way. There is not a single goal among 17 goals which can work in separation, in isolation. All this must be addressed comprehensively. That is the vision which world leaders have made. It took about 3-4 years in negotiation. The 2030 Agenda is a pact between governments and their people. Many governments are aligning behind the goals and setting their own national priorities. Businesses see exciting opportunities. Civil society is mobilizing. I'm sure that your universities also should align your operations of these academic operations in aligning with Sustainable Development Goals and Climate Change Agreement. And Climate Change Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals are in fact 2 sides of the same coin. They will both require reduced use of fossil fuels, access to clean energy, and new production and consumption patterns. This will create enormous opportunities for research and investment in clean, renewable energy and other innovative technologies. Today, I challenge each and every one of you, students and faculty at this wonderful research university, on the doorstep of NASA and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to apply your technical capacity and expertise to this urgent global priority. Ladies and gentlemen, the third area which I'd like to talk about is migration and the refugees. In fact, if you study history, the human beings, it's been the natural trend, the human trend, that people have been constantly moving for a better future, better place, since millennia years. But particularly these days, people are moving because they have to move, they have to flee from danger to their lives. We have 65 million people who are away from their homes, who have been forced to flee. This is the highest number since the end of Second World War. Only during the Second World War had we had more than 65 million people who were displaced, refugees. In 21st century, by all the standards of scientific development, technological development, economic well-being, there should be much less. But now we have a much more. That really creates a lot of problems. Xenophobia, hatred, discrimination, and killing. That we have to stop and prevent. We have to provide life-saving assistance to all these people. This is what United Nations has to do. But United Nations cannot do it alone. No country, including the United States, can do it alone. Climate change is one of the reasons why their living conditions are deteriorating. Therefore, United Nations has convened for the first time again in the history of 71 years, the summit meeting on global movement of migrants and refugees. That was done at my initiative, and President Obama, following day, convened his own summit meeting where I worked as co-chairman, focusing on refugees. The United Nations has agreed to and adopted a New York Declaration on global movement of refugees and migrants. We are now working another 1.5 years or 2 years to agree on a global compact, because this cannot be done by any country or any group of countries. We have to address this issue based on global responsibility sharing. This has to be shared by all the countries around the world. Governments pledge solidarity with the people who are forced to flee and reaffirm the respect for the human rights of refugees and migrants. We also launched a global campaign to combat xenophobia called Together. Let us build bridges of mutual understanding and mutual support, rather than erecting walls and barriers. Therefore, together, respect, safety, and dignity for all. That has been our catchphrase. Our campaign is designed to highlight inclusivity and the strength of diversity. There is a power of diversity. And I've been warning the world political leaders. Don't make mistake by dividing the people, you may get vote added. No, that's going against. By respecting the diversity, you can have much more strength. Of course, when there are all different ethnicities, all different group of people, it seems to be very much divided. But when you respect all their traditions, their cultures, and their religions, their languages, even though it may be looking divisive and diverse, it can become very much inclusive. It can have a much more powerful force and energy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me close my speech today by just introducing one very moving story. You might have heard the Syrian lady, refugee lady, Yusra Mardini. She participated, in fact, she is a good swimmer. She participated in Rio Olympic Games as a swimmer. What happened when she fled her country, Syria? She was one of many people in a small boat, a crowded boat, on a sea in Mediterranean. Then, unfortunately, this boat got engine trouble. They were just drifting, very dangerous. Then she jumped into the sea with some of her friends who were able to swim. They were pushing 3 hours, pushing this boat to the shore. They were able to do that, and they saved all life. Of course, Yusra, she was exhausted, but she and her fellow swimmers had proven the power of human solidarity. We human beings are all in the same boat. If we work together, we can all make it our destination, a safer, more sustainable, and just world for all the people. I call on young people, particularly young students, starting with the students here today at the University of Maryland, to lead the way and be a do-good generation. Your university has taken do-good campaign, and many universities are now participating in this do-good campaign. Put your energy and values to the best use. Demonstrate your concern about injustice here in your communities and around the world. Think beyond yourselves. Just do not think about where you are studying. United States is the most well-to-do, wealthiest countries. Just think about other people in Africa, in Middle East, and in poor countries, what they need and what they are doing. You'll not be able to see them without your heart breaking. Think about all those people. Have a compassion. As a young people have normally a strong passion. It's your prerogative to be passionate. But if this passion is not accompanied with compassion, then you don't know where your passion will develop. Therefore, passion should always be accompanied with compassion. Have a great compassion for other people. Try to raise and widen your horizon. The world may be small, but it is still, there are many things you can do, you can contribute. Therefore, I am asking you to be a global citizen. That has been my consistent message to young people. Be a global citizen. Be a leader. Whatever profession you may have in your career, in your future. But when you have a global vision, you can make this world better for all. Again, I'm very much honored to have this honorary degree, but I'm asking you, we work together to make this world better, where nobody will be left behind. That's a vision of the United Nations through these Sustainable Development Goals. I thank you very much for your attention and for your global visions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now begin the Q&A portion of the event with Secretary General Bond, moderated by Dr. Robert Orr, Dean of the School of Public Policy and Special Advisor to the Secretary General on Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I have had the great pleasure and honor to be in many places in the world with you, but I don't think I remember ever sitting on a stage in funny robes in front and having a conversation in front of 1,000 close friends. So thank you. This is one new experience. I'd like to ask, I know we only have a few minutes, but if students, I'd like to give priority to students, have a question for the Secretary General, if they could please approach the two mics that are here, left and right. We will only have an opportunity for very few questions, but while you are making your way to the mic, I thought I would get us started, sir. You are coming to the end of a very successful 10-year term as Secretary General, managing the world's most difficult problems. I would like you to share with our students today your vision of leadership. I've seen you operate in very difficult circumstances. I've seen things work. I've seen them not work. At the end of 10 years leading the world, what can you share with us about your views on leadership?
Thank you very much for a very important question. I thought that my speech would be sufficient to get honorary degree. Now I realize that I'm having examination for this doctoral degree. In any way, whatever the conditions may be for this honorary degree, I'll try to answer. As you know, December 31st will be my last day as a Secretary General. I believe that everybody has a different style in their leadership because we have been educated in different ways, different styles, at different schools, and you have different parents and different friends. So it's only natural that all leaders have different styles. I have shown my genuine own leadership style. But one key word, if I may want to say, is that lead by example. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult. If you want to lead the whole big organization, unless you show your own quality, your own commitment, and ask other people to follow your leadership. If you just stay behind, why don't you do this? This is my direction. Nobody will follow you. When you go ahead, and this is my style, this is my vision, and I'm leading by example, sometimes you have to do much more than your staff. When staff can work 8 hours, then you have to work 9 hours or 10 hours. Otherwise, you cannot convince your people. That's my leadership style. Of course, then how can you implement your vision? That, again, has a different way of doing. Sometimes you have to shout and you have to make it clear that this is my vision, you must do it. When it comes to human rights and human dignity, violation of all these human rights, then you have to really raise your voice. There are other issues which may have some more sensitive issues that you can also engage in a different way with world leaders. And in most of the cases, I think I have been able to convince world leaders, and I have been able to convince our staff That is why we have been able to agree on climate change or sustainable development goals. It's very difficult to convince 193 sovereign member states. Everybody comes with their own national interest. But the important and encouraging value of the United Nations, multilateralism, is that when they bring their national interest, national perspectives, at the end of debate and discussions, we all come out with a global vision. That is what United Nations has been doing. Sometimes it takes a long time, much longer than expected. That's why United Nations often is criticized that we are taking too long time, too inefficient, ineffective. But with the perseverance, with the flexibility, with patience, I have been able to lead this organization. This is what I can tell you.
Thank you. You know, professors have a very bad habit of giving grades after answers. There's only one part of your answer that I want to call attention to. You said when people who work for you work 8 hours, you have to work 9. The UN that I remember, we worked 15 and you worked 20 a day. May I ask the first student on this side of the room to ask a question, please?
Thank you. Mr. Secretary General, thank you so much for being here and giving the inspirational speech. My name is Ling Lang He. I'm a PhD student in the School of Public Policy. Many people think of you as the climate SG, and your successor was just elected, and he said he would do his best to follow through on your legacy on climate and SDGs. So my question is, what would you advise him as priority for the Paris process moving forward? And for those of us interested in supporting this process, what advice can you give us as we are preparing ourselves and entering this career? Thank you so much.
Again, talking about climate change, I may have a long story to tell you, but because of time limit, I just told you the lead by example. When I took over my job in 2007, the negotiation on climate change was very slow or almost non-existent. So how to jumpstart? It was very difficult, very difficult. Then just you talk that climate change is happening or it is very dangerous, then people would not believe it. That's why I have been traveling all around the world. I think you'll find me as the only world leader who visited Arctic twice and Antarctica once, then Aral Sea and Lake Chad or Amazon Basin, Amazon River basins and all other places where I was able to see. Like I have been twice to Iceland and Greenland and all other places. On this Arctic ice, I used to speak out to the world, send a message, beat the drums. By doing that, I was able to gradually to move ahead these discussions. Now, all this agreement has been agreed and is going to be effective on November 4th. I hope my successor will carry on full implementation. Now, even though it will be effective on November 4th, it's simply merely some pages of written document. All this written document must be translated into action, implementation. Implementation is not the only job of the government. It should be done by business communities, it should be done by university, academic communities, and civil societies. Each and every one of you can be part of this implementation. I'm glad that my successor designate has reaffirmed yesterday that I will take all this legacy through implementation. So my message, I will continue to discuss with him that there are many issues, sustainable development goals. Everyone, every country, every business firms, they have taken stronger ownership of these sustainable development goals and the climate change. It's not the job of government. Civil society, business communities, governments, and academic communities, they all should be part of this. Particularly, I'm asking, since I'm in the university, the professors should teach young students so that they have a better understanding, they have more ownership on this. After all, these visions are for young people, for their generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And over here, if you could please introduce yourself before your question.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rachel Nyakana Blair, and I'm a freshman here at the University of Maryland. My family is from the country Uganda, and I'm passionate about guaranteeing 12 years of education for women worldwide. So I love that you had a project that helped empower women in the African Great Lakes region in 2007. How can leaders continue to help empower the women in that region?
I can tell you that that's again very important question. That's one of the very important goals of sustainable SDGs. I'm a beneficiary of this good and quality education. When I was admitted into elementary school, by that time, unfortunately, Korean War broke out, and all the schools were destroyed. We didn't have, let alone the school buildings, but textbooks. At that time, United Nations came and they delivered everything, like textbooks and something we had to eat and wear. So I'm the beneficiary of all this good education. Koreans were very poor, very thirsty. They didn't have water. At the same time, the Koreans were also hungry for education. They were thirsty for education. That's a vision of the leaders. And that was a vision of the United Nations. Now, with so many refugees, refugee camps established around the world, 65 million, the first thing we do for refugees is that first we set up tents, then we provide water and something to eat. After that, we make a school. Even though those schools are makeshift schools, we establish schools and teach young people. Without education, you cannot have, first of all, well-trained human resource who can engage in manufacturing or other businesses. Therefore, I established in 2011 the Global Education First Initiative. I appointed former UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown as my special envoy in raising the awareness and promoting and providing educational facilities to all the students around the world. Therefore, providing good education to young people, that's a very wise investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to apologize to everyone who is lined up, but I think we only have time for one more question, so I think we're going to turn to our last questioner.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Maya. I'm a director of sustainability for our Student Government Association and also the leader of our fossil fuel divestment movement. So for universities, what is, not just UMD, but universities across the country, what's the most significant thing they can do to help prevent the worst effects of climate change?
I answered these questions. The universities can also take a great contribution, make a great contribution when it comes to climate change. There are many students, many buildings. You use a lot of energies. How you use energy sustainable way, and how to make food and consumption in a sustainable way. And the most importantly, if professors can have some curriculum on sustainable development or climate change, how we can live sustainably with our nature, then educating young people so that they can be agents of drivers of these changes, that's a very important one, investment. And I really strongly advise a university to be a champion in promoting and implementing these sustainable development goals and climate change. In fact, these are two most important, ambitious, far-reaching, and visionary commitment of the United Nations. But they were adopted at the United Nations by the world leaders, but it's now belonging to all the governments and all the business communities and all the citizens. So each and every citizen can share and own this vision. I thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary General, on behalf of President Loh and Chancellor Corrett, and especially on behalf of the wonderful students of the University of Maryland, we would like to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come share with us your thoughts today. It is an honor, and we thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our special event today. Please remain seated while the Secretary General and his delegation depart the venue.